Thanks for tuning in to My Valley, His Victory, hosted by me, Mackenzie Smith, where I interview Christians who love the outdoors and have walked through valleys in their lives. In a world of highlight reels and surface-level relationships, we all have faced hardships. I believe our experiences can be encouraging to others if we have the courage to be vulnerable. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." My goal is to inspire you to come to the Creator through His creation and connect you with Christians who have been through similar experiences. I pray that this podcast encourages you if you are in a valley and pushes you to share how God has turned your past valley into His victory. Hey friends, I have a special announcement. I am hosting 2 The Wilderness and the Word events in 2025, July 23rd through 27th and August 13th through 17th. These are Christian women's retreats in Eureka, Montana, with Audrey from the Trail North. Our goal with these retreats is to bring together a group of women who want to worship the Creator in His creation. Over these 5 days, you'll meet like-minded women who want to grow in community, worship in the outdoors, and challenge themselves personally. I can't wait to hang out with you, so shoot me an email at myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com for more information or the registration link. Spots are filling up, so make sure and reserve yours today. On today's episode of My Valley, His Victory, we have Jenny Pruett. She is an entrepreneur, founder, and executive director of Freedom Fighter, a nonprofit organization that is rallying an army to go to war against the atrocity of human trafficking. Jenny is married and lives in Cocoa Beach, Florida. She grew up enjoying the mountains of Wyoming and Colorado with her dad and older brothers. She now gets to hike all over the world, doing what she loves for the freedom of others. Thanks so much for being with us today, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie, for having me. It's such a blessing to be on here.
Absolutely. So I know I just read your bio, but why don't you go ahead and just share with our listeners a little bit more about yourself and who you are?
Sure. Let's see. 15 years ago, God called me to something I knew nothing about, and it was owning a coffee shop, cafe. And I said, okay, here I am. And so I spent 13 years doing that, and it was ministry for me, and I hired a lot of young people and kids and stuff, but it was out of owning that cafe that I was introduced to the problem of human trafficking and what it really is. And an employee actually was the one who introduced me to a documentary, and it was called Nefarious from Exodus Cry. And I was convicted through my thought process of what I felt like the sex industry was and how you got involved into it. And so it was that moment on that the Lord continued to draw me to that industry. And I was introduced into a hike with raising money for, at the time, Rescue Freedom, now Atlas Free, to raise funds. And that's really how the journey started. And that was in 2017.
Okay. Very cool. And now I guess that has been 7 or 8 years, and you've been doing some amazing things. So talk to us a little bit about your company and what exactly you guys do.
Sure. So I sold my cafe 2 years ago. So until then, I was trying to do both, run a cafe and a nonprofit organization. So since I've sold the cafe, I've been really trying to focus on who we are, what we do. God, where do you have us in this lane? Because it's quite overwhelming and where you can be. So what we are is God keeps bringing me back to raising awareness, and we really have become an event organization. So we have events, we raise awareness, and then it's through that awareness that we can pull others into being engaged after they have an awareness of understanding. And then we give them outlets to be part of the solution and to help the cause from that point on, and really become a freedom fighter.
Yeah. So why hiking, of all things, to fight the fight for human trafficking?
Well, when I was invited for my first hike, I had done a marathon like right around the time I turned 40, and I raised awareness to leukemia and fundraised, and was part of a team. And when I was introduced into doing a hike for it, I thought, wow, what a cool concept, because it's basically the same thing. You're doing an endurance event, you're training, you're raising awareness. And so it was simple. It's like, instead of doing a marathon, we were just climbing a mountain in a day and come back down. And it was something that I love to do. And trying to make it work in Florida was a whole new challenge. And that is really where God has really been in it.
Yeah. So I know you said that you have a lot of background in hiking growing up in Wyoming. Talk to us about that and maybe how that experience helped mold you into, what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up, my dad was a rancher, and our idea of family reunions and family get-togethers where, we would pack horses and mules up. My dad liked places where people couldn't get to, very remote, not campgrounds. And then we would go up as a family, and we'd hike a different mountain every day with a base camp. So my first one he took me on, I was 10. I had no idea, obviously, at that time, how that would forge my life. But I took a break when I moved to Florida when I was 19, and I got involved with a lot of other things. And it wasn't until 2010, I believe, that I partnered with my brother, who has an outdoor ministry called Victory Mountain. And we began to host women's retreats in Wyoming. So I would take a group of women from here in Florida, in Cocoa Beach, and we would take them out to Wyoming, and we would pack in to a remote area, and we would have a women's retreat and come back down the mountain. And I did that for about 10 years with him. Amazing, amazing experience. A lot of things I'm doing now came out of that time. But took another break running my restaurant. And then when I started, I got the call to go back to the mountains, when I was the restaurant owner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool that God has used, your childhood and growing up in the mountains, and then your brother kind of pulled you back into it. And then this cafe, you said is kind of what led you to the human trafficking thing. And so that's really cool to see God keep showing up in all those different places and kind of putting you back on the path of being in the mountains.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
So talk to us a little bit about what those retreats maybe looked like, and maybe how those are different than the freedom hikes that you're doing today. Are you guys going over, any sort of like curriculum on these hikes, or are you guys just kind of out there raising money, focusing on the human trafficking thing?
So the retreats, I think, they formed me. I know they formed a lot. There were people that went on those hikes, had some amazing experiences and encountered Christ. But I also think it was kind of a preparation for me and what the Lord had for me down the road, because I grew a lot. And when we come to a freedom hike for human trafficking, because we want, personally, it's like, I think my ministry and and with Freedom Fighter is that I don't want it to solely be a Christian organization. I want to draw everyone, because this is an everyone problem. It's not just Christians and believers. So I don't put in like any kind of a curriculum, like a Bible study relating to freedom, but people get that through the organization and through me automatically when they join. When we go through trainings and we go through video calls, it's always about, we are fighting for others, but it's about freedom in general, because if you allow yourself through this endurance event, pushing yourself through your limits, you will encounter Christ and you will have a freedom story of your own. I mean, just like everything, right? We go out to bless others, but we in return are blessed and changed through those actions. And that's, freedom is freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you have broadened it, to everyone, and being able to still introduce some of those topics. I think that's really cool. So going on, I know you've kind of traveled all over the world doing some of these events. Where has been maybe your favorite place or favorite area if you don't want to nail it down to a favorite hike, but what's been one that is really special?
I mean, I love Italy, so I went there the second time this last year, and we specifically hiked into the Dolomites. And from a beauty standpoint, it was spectacular. From a difficult hiking perspective, it was challenging. Europe's beautiful, beautiful to hike, but, we have beautiful mountains right here in the US, so there's so many amazing places that I've been able to go. I'm just so blessed. I get to go to New Zealand in February, and it just blows my mind that I have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. The Dolomites are on my bucket list for sure. And every picture I see is just like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts. So I know you touched on it a little bit in the Freedom Hikers part, but talk to us about how being in the outdoors and being on these hikes maybe plays a role in your relationship specifically with Christ.
I mean, God speaks in the outdoors, right? God always uses really physical examples, to show me things that I need to know. Like, I mean, I'll just tell you like one little story that I just realized just recently, like how I was just thinking one day, right? But on one of our retreats with my brother, it's like there was it was a common theme because it's always there, but I don't know that I always really noticed it as much, where you have this rock and out of the center, this one little crease of a rock, you have this beautiful flower that's blooming, and there's nothing else around. And it's like, wow, like, God, why that flower there? And it was like, that flower, what I felt like he was telling me was like, that flower was created so that you would see it that day. Like, if that's the only purpose of that flower that day was to speak to my, to bless me, right? And so it was what I walked away with that retreat was, grow where you're planted. Wherever God, we don't get to choose where we're planted, right? And but wherever we are, that He wants us to grow. And during those retreats that I had with my brother, I constantly just battled with, I really wanted to live out west. I just felt like it was my home. The mountains are in my soul. But I was here on this beach, right? And I'm married to a Florida boy he is not a mountain guy. And take a miracle act of God to get him to move to any elevation. So I'm like, God had me here. And it's like I was walking on the beach one day, and I just felt Him minister to me so deeply. Jenny, grow where you're planted. Like, this is your home. I'm like, ah. Oh. So I at that moment forward, I quit referring to Wyoming as my home. It was, no, this is my home. And so I felt like once I did that, like a gate opened. And I was thinking just the other day, like, what are the chances of, I mean, literally, there's probably been 7,500 people from here in Cocoa Beach, Florida, that have went on a freedom hike in flatland country, right? Only God, only God, right? It's like that somebody would listen to me and say, "Oh, it's gonna be fun. You're gonna love it. You're gonna climb this mountain 20 foot," and it's like, people who've never even seen mountains before have went on a hike before. And it's like, that is only God can do those amazing things once we surrender to His plan, even though, right, it didn't look like my plan or what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I love that analogy of the rock and the flower and the grow where you're planted, because like you said, God puts us in situations all the time that we kind of look around and we're like, why are we here? But chances are He has you in that place for a reason. And there's something that you need to do or be a part of, or somebody, somebody, something that you need to do in that situation. And I think that's so good, walking into any situation with that mindset of like, God has me here for a reason. Who am I supposed to help? What am I supposed to do? who am I supposed to listen to? Maybe
Right.
you're there to be, influenced by somebody else.
100%.
There's so many different possibilities, but I think so often we can just get stuck in the mindset of the pouting, like, why am I here? I don't like that I'm here.
Yes.
And then we close ourselves off to maybe something that God is wanting to do.
Yep.
And so,
yeah, you're so
I think that's really helpful. And I think that it's so cool that you have also been able to take your love for the mountains and introduce it to people that, like you said, don't probably have that same love, and who are Florida people who, there's nothing wrong with Florida people, but I do feel like they love the beach and they are there because they want to be there and they don't want to be anywhere else.
Yep. They love to surf. It's like I've been surfing capital. Some of the greatest surfers in the world have come from Cocoa Beach, right? And I'm like, I tried. I don't do that. But,
yeah. So I know where you live is technically outdoorsy. It's outdoorsy in a different way. People spend a lot of time at the beach and out in nature of some sort. So talk to us about how the moments that you're not able to be in the mountains, but you're at home, how you connect with God on an everyday basis through the outdoors without being in the mountains.
I mean, I think it's easy, but I do live on the beach, right? So I do have that amazing blessing, that I live very close to the beach. And I used to run with my dogs most mornings on the beach for a long time. But I don't do that now. But I just being outside, it's like I love to be outside. I can connect through God on, a beach walk alone, walking down the street. We have beautiful weather, in Florida. There's so many ways. Like, I don't really go hiking in Florida. Like, there are trails and things that you can do. But to me, I'd rather just be just outside. I go outside and sit on my patio and just breathe in the air. It's just beautiful, clean air, whether we're in the mountains or Florida. And God is just, we get away from our distractions, Obviously, putting our phone down can be really difficult in the age that we live. And I know for me personally, that's very challenging. Put your phone down and just be with Him, in the outdoors.
Yeah. That's really good. I feel like sometimes I even have to set a timer on my phone, put it away for this amount of time, just
Very
take the time. And because I think we've conditioned ourselves to, whenever we're bored or whenever, there's not anything to do, to just pick up our phone or to turn on music or to, turn on the TV. And it's like, sometimes you have to block out, and that may sound silly to some people, but I think that you have to start somewhere. And if that takes you blocking out 30 minutes of your day to say, I'm going to put my phone in my room and I'm going to go and pick it back up, then that will start to become a habit. But it's okay to start there and have to set a reminder on your phone every day to take time and get off of it. I think we think it should just be natural for us. And it's no, it's not. And so it's okay to start with reminders. And sometimes, I need still reminders all the time for things that I should be doing.
Right. That it should be natural. But I do, I go for a walk twice a day with my dogs, and I leave my phone at home. And, people said oh my God, what if something happens? I go, well, 15 years ago, I didn't have a phone. I didn't carry it with me all the time. I figured out what would happen. So
I think we forget, we can go and knock on somebody's door and say hey, I need help. Or, you can flag someone down. Chances are, if you go on a walk outside of your house, unless, you live in a totally remote place, I highly doubt that's most of my listeners. You can find help if you need help. It's okay to leave the phone.
Yeah. And then, you know what? God's there to help us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It'll show you where your trust really lies. Yeah. Do you trust your cell phone or do you trust God? Because I guarantee you, if you're out there spending time with God, intentional time, He's probably going to put a little extra layer of protection on you.
Yeah. And I was so grateful for that time that I have, because I know if I had my phone, I would be distracted. I would be answering text message while I'm with them and I'm outside, and I'm just I don't want to, so I just leave it and enjoy them. And I enjoy, enjoy this outside.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get comfortable again with being bored and not being constantly distracted.
Amen. Amen.
One thing I've started to do is I try to set a time, like I just started this, so I've done it a couple times now, but where I set like a whole day of like, I tell my husband, I'm not talking to you. It's usually whenever he's gone for work, like I'm going to turn my phone off for a whole day and I'm not going to, turn on my TV. I can read and I can pray and I can, I can read, but I can't like
No
listen to anything. No talking to anybody, no internal or external communication from anybody. And
wow, that's awesome.
It's been helpful just to kind of reset and like collect my thoughts and process. And
that's so good.
So there's a challenge out there for everybody.
For sure.
and even if you can't do a day, like, I mean, I feel like anybody could do an evening, like, or an hour. Like, when's the last time you spent an hour in total silence?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Sometimes like start small, start something that you think's doable. So you get encouraged, and before you, it's like, don't start off running a marathon,
Yeah. Sleeping doesn't count, by the way,
right.
people.
No, it doesn't
count. Okay, Jenny. Well, switching gears a little bit into the title of this podcast, My Valley, His Victory, would love for you to share a valley or a season of wilderness that you experienced and just what God maybe taught you or prepared you for in that season.
I think there's been a lot. I've been in the mountains a lot of times and a lot of valleys in my life, and where God has showed up really pretty amazing. But I think one of the more recent and bigger times was when I was getting ready to sell my cafe a couple years ago. So I had, as usual, I would do probably 3 to 4 freedom hikes a summer. So it wasn't just one, I figured it was training, right? It was better to train out there than it is to train here. So I would sign up for many. And so it was, it was the first hike of the season, and it was the Enchantments in Washington. And I've done that hike many times. And you go out and you hike 6 miles up to this lake, and it's called Kolchak Lake. And from that point on, that's kind of the turnaround, where if you need to turn around, that's the spot we always tell everybody. And then from there, you start to hike Asgard and go over the pass. And so I'm usually, in the front. I have no problem with pace. And I started off that morning, and I was in the back, and I was huffing and puffing, and I was struggling to keep up with the team. And I had a good team, but it was it would have been like, if I was at my best on my game, it would have been, oh, this is so great. We're all like, good pace hikers. It's gonna be a beautiful day. We're gonna get out early, all that. But I'm like, I'm crap. It's me. I'm the one's holding everybody back. And I just couldn't catch my breath and just struggling with cardio. And I got to the lake, and I went to, and I was actually not a leader on this hike. I actually just signed up. I didn't even know. I signed up for this hike, and I was like, I don't even know why I'm signing up for it, because I'm not leading. I'm not taking anybody, because usually I would take somebody with me, and I wasn't one of the hike leaders. So I was just kind of being obedient to God and say, okay, well, I don't know why I'm doing it, but okay, I'll do it. And I love it. So I'll go. And so I talked to one of the hike leaders, and I said, will you pray for me? Because I'm just really struggling. I can't, I'm sitting here having a mental battle the entire 6 miles up to this lake, going, Jenny, just stop. Just stop at Kolchak. Enjoy the day. Spend the time out at the lake. Nobody really cares if you finish or not. You have nothing to prove. I've done this hike. I know physically I can do the hike. So it was this battle ongoing 6 miles. And when I got there, I said, will you pray for me? This is what's going on, in my mind. And so she prayed with me, and I was like, okay. And I didn't really feel I got an answer. It was very wishy-washy, what should I do? And then finally I was just like, okay, Lord, I don't really know what's going on, but I came here to hike. I'm hiking. So I told her, she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure, so let's go. So as we're going up Asgard Pass, which is really steep, and I was, again, way slower. She was right behind me the whole way, and I know she was praying for me the entire day. But I just felt like the Lord was like, Jenny, do you see like you can't keep up? And he showed me that, Jenny, this is how you are in your life. Like you are exhausted and you can't keep up. Like you can't keep up in your daily, you can't keep up in your business, you can't keep up in your nonprofit, you can't keep up in your personal life. You're just tired. And I was just like, wow, like no matter what I did, off the trail, that's how I felt. I couldn't keep up with the things thrown at me on a daily basis. The fires I had to put out, the solutions I had to come up with everywhere, every people or just people coming to me and just being engaged with them. Like, I just couldn't keep up. So I finished the hike. And it was a huge eye-opener to me. I still had 2 other hikes I did that summer, and I did them, but I did them in awareness of, hey, I might not be the fastest person this time, and it's okay, because I'm probably not going to keep up. But I know that God is preparing me for a time of rest, and I just got to keep going, and that rest will come. And it did, when I sold the business. So that was in July, and I sold it in September. And I realized that burnout was a real thing. Like it wasn't just a cliche that we say, oh, I'm so burned out. Like it is real. And just the fragmentation of your brain, what happens, of just like the things coming at you throughout the day, just every day, like always having to be on call, always having to be available to people for the staff and whatever. So it just, and it took a while, I don't know that I rested probably like I should have, maybe. So it's been a gradual process for me because it's really difficult for me to be still, So I didn't just go and lay on the couch and do nothing, It's like, okay, but I did, I remember a couple months later just realizing, like I have nothing to be stressed about. There was nothing. And just the weight, right, that I felt at that time. And there was a time a few months later, I was actually training for that next summer, hiking, and I do stairs in the stairwell to train for elevation. And I was listening to a podcast from a book from John Eldredge, Resilient. I don't know if you've ever, it's an excellent book just about trauma and about healing. And I remember I sat on the stairwell and cried, and it just hit me that, human trafficking alone is very dark. And so all the education that I have received, you listen to testimonies, you listen to stories, right? And it's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And how the secondhand trauma where you can take people's trauma on, right? And then all the burden, all the things over the years of staff and that become my children that have worked for me and their issues and problems. And I just realized I was carrying all that stuff, and I just sat and I cried and I was just released it all to the Lord. It was like, they're not meant for me to carry, it's like, He's like, I have this is my responsibility. I've carried it. I've dealt with it. You don't need to carry it all. You need to let it go. And I think that was really the beginning of where I could really receive healing, of letting it go.
Yeah. So talk to us about how, rest looks different now, and, maybe how you've implemented that in your life. I know, you still have your nonprofit and you still have a family and all the things. So what are you doing now to maybe proactively not reach that point again?
Yeah, that's good. Well, I know what it feels like for sure. So last year we did some multiple events back to back, and I had a lot to do, and I was primarily the only one that could really do it because we were setting it up for, future. And it was stressful. And on a daily basis, when I could feel that pressure of hurriedness, like being in a hurry and a rush, right? I just like stop, like I hate that feeling. I'm not going back there, and I have to pray and I have to release that, time yields to Jesus. Like he was never rushed. I don't need to be rushed. I need to slow down. And I know deadlines happen, but also just that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I can be a perfectionist and want things to be just so, and for, other people's experience. And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just, you got to relax and spending time, in his word. I mean, there's so many different things for the equation that keep me from being that person again. It's a struggle, because I'm a doer. I just get things done. This needs to get done. I'm going to go get it done. And if you're helping me, then you better get on board, because if you're not, it's going to get done anyway. But if you want to help, come on.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. So it's a struggle to not be back there. But I have to, the biggest thing is I know what it feels like, and I can feel it actually physically in my body. And that's when I go, I ain't going back there. And sometimes it's not, it's not being available to people. And I'm working with somebody, a couple of people now with my nonprofit, and they're like, well, you're not very easy to get a hold of. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have boundaries now. One of the goals is to be a good wife. I was absent from my marriage for a long time, pretty much. And I'm like, I want to enjoy my husband. I want to cook dinner. I want to, enjoy my home and my dogs. And I'm like, sometimes I run hard, but then when it's time for me to check out, then I have to check out.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but you have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important, having boundaries. And man, I hear so much of you and myself. And, I can actually relate to your story on a lot of different levels, because I ran restaurants for a long time and, know that lifestyle very, very much so. And yeah, I just hear so much of my story and your story. And it's kind of wild. And, I've been having a conversation with my friend recently who, I just see myself 5 years ago in her, of she's just going, pushing, doing all the things. And I'm just like, girl, you got to slow down. Like, I know you want to do it all, but by saying yes to so many things, you're saying no to so many other things that you don't even realize. And it's going to,
so true.
It's going to catch up at some point. And, it's just so easy to get caught up in the doing, and there's always things to get done. But, as you were saying, doing things at Jesus's pace, he was never rushed. And something that I've been trying to focus on over the past couple of years is a lot, I don't know the percent, but a lot of Jesus's miracles and instances in the Bibles were interruptions. Like he was going somewhere.
Yeah, so that's good.
He was going somewhere and trying to get something, on a mission to get something done, but he was interruptible. And I know.
Oh, that's so good.
I know that I am not that way.
So good.
And so I have to actively think about that often. And I get continually reminded of that. Like, this isn't a inconvenience. It might be an opportunity,
That's really good. That's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's what you were saying. And like, I mean, what would Jesus, let's look at Jesus and let's mirror what he would do. And I mean, if he had things to do on this earth, come on, y'all, what are our things?
Oh, I know. I got to the point where like my staff would just like they just didn't feel like they could even interrupt me. They couldn't talk to me. I wasn't available to them, and it was supposed to be ministry. Like it was never a job for me, but it's like if they can't interrupt me, it's like, and my husband too. Like I have to really, really, he's a king of interrupter. It's like I have a plan and this is my day and I know what I need to get done in my day. And then he throws in hey, I need you to do this or I need you this. I'm just like, what? But exactly what you said, that just ministered to me too. It's like, even in that situation to say, you know what, there's a blessing in the interruption. Just let go of my plan and my control, which is constantly a struggle.
Yep. So, Jenny, for someone who maybe is finding themselves in a similar season that you did, feeling burnt out, feeling like they have no capacity for anything, not being emotionally or, available to really a lot. And maybe as a leader, I think back to the beginning of the story when you were on that hike and you had to ask for help. And this was like something that you've been doing for years. And you thought this was going to be a walk in the park. But as leaders, like being able to reach out and ask for help, can you share with advice or encouragement to someone who's maybe struggling with that?
I think scripture that comes to mind is, I think it's Hebrews 12, about casting off whatever's hindering you to run the race. I don't have all the exact words for it, but so we can finish the race before us, right? So being burned out doesn't help anybody, right? So we're not accomplishing really what God has for us, like you said too. And I think that it's important I think we have to continually evaluate what is demanding our time. And God, are you in it? Right? Because I think that we have a lot of plans and things that we think are important that we get done. But are those my plans or, Lord, are yours plans? Because he's not going to overload us like that, right? Because if we are where we're called to be, then there's grace. And he's provided enough grace for us to get through it. So it would be an evaluation. I would encourage somebody to evaluate, is there something that I can cast off? Is there something I'm doing that you're not in that I think is important that I can cast off to relieve some pressure? And I think to go through that inventory list of where's the pressure, and to ask for help in your people that you trust and people. There's no shame in saying, I've taken too much on. Now I don't know what to do, because they're there to help you and to walk you through it and to pray for you. And we all need that. We need that assistance, that help.
Yeah.
And that God has provided that, and my verse really for that valley and to encourage others is Matthew 11:28. And that, Jesus said in this verse, it's like, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Which, really think about that. Religion, right? Religion is due. It's earning its works, right? That's really religion, saying that, I'm going to have a better relationship with Christ because I'm doing all these things for him, right? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Unforced rhythms of grace.
That's literally what I just wrote down. I said unforced. Mm.
Yeah, we get into the flesh and get into works so easily, and that's not where he is.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it takes the humility as well to, on that hike, you said that you felt like God was saying, like, do you see that you can't keep up? And it's like, even noticing that you are in a place where you can't keep up. I think there's a lot of freedom in that as well.
Yeah.
And being able to be honest with yourself and say, I can't keep doing this, and trying, something different. And so, yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that and just sharing this story. I think that this is really helpful and valuable. I know that there's a lot of people who struggle with busyness and just owning businesses and trying to manage relationships and, all the things, just the rat race of life. And so I know that this is going to be helpful to a lot of people in a lot of different seasons. I feel like it's relatable for a lot of different things.
So.
I feel like we've all probably experienced some level of being burnt out in today's society. So for a listener who maybe wants to connect with you or learn more about freedom fighters, where can they find more information?
Sure. So our website is www.imafreedomfighter.org. And email for me, if you want to personally contact me, would be Jenny Pruett, Jenny Pruett, Pruett @freedomfighter.org.
Awesome. And do you guys have any socials?
Oh, we do. Yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am a freedom fighter.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, y'all go follow along. Y'all go see if there's maybe a hike that you guys want to be a part of and help Jenny and her team on the fight to end human trafficking. Thank you so much, Jenny, for being here and again for sharing. And yeah, just so thankful for you and your story.
Thanks for having me, Mackenzie. You're awesome.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of My Valley, His Victory. If you or someone you know are interested in being on this podcast, please email myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com.